Well, folks, here we are. We're in May, which is a very special month. The month that celebrates the 80th anniversary of the Railway series. And what better way to celebrate it than by talking about all 24 of the current seasons of my favorite franchise ever, Thomas the Tank Engine. Now, yes, I know, I have reviewed these seasons in the past, 4 years ago to be exact. So, you may ask, why am I reviewing these again? Well, those review videos have been completely outdated, and my opinions on a lot of aspects of these seasons have changed drastically. And I thought that it'd be about time to return to some normality on the channel, since I had a whale of a time looking at the episodes for both Teletubbies and Bob the Builder. One day I'll do Fireman Sam's episodes, but I don't see myself coming back to that series anytime soon. At least for a while. Now, unlike previously where I reviewed the seasons one by one, I'm going to be dividing all the seasons into their own separate reviews, as in, by the era in which they are in. However, I will be splitting a few seasons. Like, this abomination of a season will be in its own video, and season 6 and 7 will be in its own video, if you catch my drift. So, let's begin with the golden years. Season 1 is what I can describe as a calming start to the show, and that's honestly a good thing. You need an adjacent start of a first season of any show to ease the audience into these characters and their journeys across the season. Season 1 honestly feels like we're reading a long storybook. What I mean is that every 3 episodes or so builds upon the rest, all leading up to the big finale at the end of the season. There's a lot to enjoy about Season 1. I mean, for being over 40 years old, the sets still look as real as they could possibly be, and they still look incredible to this day. Sets like this set from Toby and the Stout Gentleman, or Gordon's Hill, look great. They don't feel thrown together or anything. They look real, and brimming with detail. I know I've said that I don't give two flying f***s about Thomas's realism, but I can't help but admire how realistic these sets look. And now for the narration by everyone's favourite Beatles member, Ringo Starr. This is the first full-on proper essay video where I get to express my thoughts on Ringo. And I'm a broken record when I say that Ringo's narration is great. I just wish that more narrators had his narration style. Pierce Brosnan tried to emulate his narration for The Great Discovery, but it doesn't come anywhere close to how Ringo himself is. He provides a really calm tone for the characters, and he even has little ad-libs in some parts.
What cheeks, spluttered Gordon. That Henry is too big for his wheels. Fancy speaking to me like that. Me, who has never had an accident.
Most of the episodes have aged remarkably well as well. Although, some of them feel a bit simple. Like Thomas's Train or Thomas and the Guard as examples. But they're definitely not terrible. Far from it, actually. It's just that, compared to later seasons, They just feel a bit simplistic when compared to episodes like Percy's Promise or Something in the Air or Jet Engine. Still though, there's still a lot of great episodes in this season. Some of my favorites would definitely be Thomas and Gordon, Thomas Goes Fishing, Dirty Objects, Off the Rails, Down the Mine, and especially Percy Runs Away. Those are some of my personal faves. And need I even mention the absolute fan favorite, The Flying Kipper. An absolutely legendary episode. Actually, you know what? I'm saving this for another video, because it deserves to be praised in its own video. It's just that amazing to me. And one last great thing to know about this season is, you guessed it, the score. I am absolutely a broken record when I am saying this, because holy shit, the score for this season and the rest of the classic era is ear candy levels of amazing. Some of my favorite themes would be Thomas's theme, Percy's theme, James's theme, and of course, the standout piece of the classic era and the franchise as a whole, the original theme song. I mean, move aside other kids show theme songs, you are nothing compared to this absolutely legendary theme song. Even at 21 years of age, I still adore this theme song to date. You wanna know why this is my favorite franchise ever? This song is why. This and Owl House's theme songs are down in my book as the best TV show theme songs ever. In my opinion, at least. So, in general, Season 1, while a few stories are a bit basic, are more so made up for it with its slapping music, fun narration, and gorgeous sceneries that still hold up over 40 years later. This season set the groundwork for the rest of the show moving forward, and it'll never be forgotten for what it did. Season 2 is a very gritty season, but in a good way, of course. Season 2 is considered as one of the best, and I can absolutely see why. It is a top 5 season of the show without a doubt, for a lot of reasons. One of those being, once again, the score. There's been quite a large expansion this season, and I love it for that. With some of my favorite pieces being the Viaducts theme from Better Late Than Never, and especially the chilling horror slash film-like piece from the beginning of Ghost Train. I mean, this is a contender for best theme ever in the whole franchise. Probably right next to the intro theme from Lost Treasure. I mean, this gives me goosebumps, man. Oh, I love it. Ringo's narration has also significantly improved. He seems to have a lot more energy than the last season, having a bit more oomph into the voice performance. By the way, don't worry, I didn't forget George Carlin. I'll get to him when I discuss Season 3. And now for the visuals. James A. Williams described in his review of Season 2 that the visuals look brown, and I can see why. Though, I kinda like it. It just makes everything look a lot gritty and grimy, really adds to the flavor of the sets. The new characters as well were wonderful new additions to the show, with Duck, Donald, Douglas, Boko, and Villain Ben being standouts. And need I even mention the absolute gems like Ghost Train, Thomas Comes to Breakfast, the Doc and Diesel trilogy, Break Van, The Deputation, and especially Old Iron, to name the many great episodes from this season. And yes, I even like Better Late Than Never. Thomas and Tugsman explains why this episode is hated, and why this is a bit overhated. And I actually agree with him on a lot of points, and you can go check out his video for more details. Oh, and how can I forget about the most important element of Season 2? The infamous cancelled episode, The Missing Coach, based on the stories Hello Twins and The Missing Coach from the Railway series. Why is this infamous, you may ask? Well, it's the only cancelled episode of Season 2 to have all of its footage filmed. Two of the other cancelled Season 2 episodes, being Time for Trouble and Percy's Promised, were pushed to the next season, which we'll get to. And Gordon Goes Foreign was cancelled entirely, with a brief, and I mean brief, mention in Thomas and the Royal Engine.
I know the way to London after all, and have been there before, you know. Not the station names again, Gordon. I just wish they would make up their minds on what to call London Station.
But the reason why The Missing Coach was cancelled partway through its production is because Britt Allcroft thought that the story would be too confusing for kids to understand. As for where I stand on the canned episode, well, it's not perfect, and it is flawed. On the one hand, this would have been a nice introduction to Donald and Douglas, and the vision of Thomas having a third coach would have been cool, but on the other hand, I can kinda see why Brits decided to cancel it, as the vision of the twins with two different tenders wouldn't look so good from a visual perspective. So, I'd say I'm conflicted with The Missing Coach. A lot of people believe that Better Late Than Never replaced The Missing Coach, and I will admit that I'm kinda guilty for thinking that too, but I'm not convinced to think that, as that was probably cut at the last minute due to some of Christopher Audrey's last minute stories from More About Thomas the Tank Engine being adapted. So, I know I rambled on about the canned episode for the majority of this re-review, but I can't help it. Season 2 is one of the best seasons of the entire series, and is a significant step up from Season 1. And little did we know that it would get better from here. Oh boy, I've been waiting to get to this golden nugget for a while now. Season 3, my absolute favourite season of not just the classic era, but the entire series. Part of that is because it was the only classic season I had in full when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved every second of it. And now as an adult, I still love it even to this day, and it still holds up incredibly well today. Part of that reason is the gorgeous visuals. It still keeps that business feel that the last season had, but the colors just absolutely pop with this season. It's like with DK Mountain in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The colors pop so much despite it being a part of the Booster Course Pass, where, despite its graphics improving with every wave, still weren't up to par with the base game. I mean, look at these shots in Thomas Percy and the Post Train. My god, it looks so beautiful. And the props look stunning. Whoever on the model crew chose these bright coloured paint for the engines should give themselves a pat on the back, because man, look how shiny they look. But that's not the only great thing about Season 3. Of course, we have the introduction of the best narrator in the entire series, the late, great Michael Angelis. I mean, what's there not to love about this guy's narration? Yeah, in season 3 especially, he tends to vary in quality depending on what narration version you watch, but I can't help but love every second of his narration. Mainly from the TV airings dubs, since those were the dubs I grew up with. This season also saw the introduction, for American audiences at least, of George Carlin, who would not only narrate this season and the next season, but would also go back and re-narrate seasons 1 and 2 for American audiences. That's cool. As for what I think of Carlin, while I prefer Ringo and Michael's narrations, I still enjoy his narration quite a bit if I'm honest. And I could tell he was having fun with the role here, especially when it came to voicing Nolan and Douglas.
We do? Quizzed Douglas. And what would that be? Scrap, said Edward quietly. Douglas gasped. Don't mention that word. It makes me wheels wobble.
Speaking of characters, the new characters introduced in this season are great new additions. Oliver and Toad are great new additions to Duck's line, Bulgy is a great road antagonist, and Mavis is a great obstacle for Toby to tackle. And this season's lineup of episodes are instant hits. And this time, instead of just always Railway series adaptations, this season's episodes vary in terms of adaptation and / or writing quality. As in, half of this season is Railway series adaptations, and the other half is either original stories by Britt and David, or magazine stories originally written by future head writer Andrew Brenner. Yeah, 21 years before he joined the Thomas crew, he was involved with writing stories that would be adapted into this season and season 5. One of the stories he wrote that was adapted into this season was the ever so infamous Henry's Forest. Why is this episode infamous, you may ask? Well, it's pretty simple. Wilbur Audrey himself absolutely hated this episode for breaking railway practice, and that engines shouldn't stop to look at nature.
What responsible driver would stop as if he was in a roadside lay-by? You can't do it.
No offense, Audrey, but I call bullshit on that. I actually find it pretty cool that Henry has an obsession with nature. It makes him stand out instead of just being a pompous asshole most of the time. Henry's Forest in general is one of my favorite stories from this season. I just love how dire the situation is with the storm, and how distraught Henry was seeing all of the trees just destroyed by the storm. But it all worked out in the end though, as Terrence and Trevor helped out to get the forest back up to snuff again. Such a wholesome episode all around. Henry's Forest isn't just up there as one of my favourite Fs from this season. Trust Thomas, Time for Trouble, A Scarf for Percy, Gordon and the Famous Visitor, Buzz Buzz, and especially All at Sea, Escape, and Oliver Owns Up are also up there as some of the best episodes this season has to offer. The music even got a big glow up compared to the previous 2 seasons. Out went the ditty score of seasons 1 and 2, and in with the more orchestral-like feel that would be played with until Mike and Jr.'s departure. And man, I really dig this new approach Mike and Jr. was going for with the music for this season. Some of my favorite pieces is the remix of Thomas's theme from season 1, the branch line theme used for Trust Thomas, Mavis's theme, and especially the epic rescue theme from Escape. Fun fact, when Mike and Jr. presented to David Mitton with this theme, Mitton was totally taken aback by it that he invited all the crew members in Shepperton Studios to come listen to it. And, well, I can't say I blame him for doing this. as this theme is absolutely phenomenal. And this season was also the first to incorporate songs into the series, although this season just had one, that of course being Thomas's Anthem. But being the first ever song of the entire franchise, it really is a serious bop. And I have a hard time picking between this and the ever so masterful Headmaster Hastings cover of this song. But that's a topic for another time. Man, I never would have thought I would ramble on about Season 3 for as long as I did. But I can't help it. This is truly an amazing season, and is my most favorite season of the whole show. I doubt that anything can top this one in terms of quality, except for maybe one thing. But it's more so season quality than just the quality overall. In any case though, Season 3 is the peak of classic Thomas, and it is one I hold so closely to my heart. Truly a step in the right direction for the show. Oh boy, Season 4, one of the most beloved seasons of the entire series. Now, I want to say this without pissing a lot of Season 4 fans off. Season 4 is still great, yes, but it's flawed. Like, seriously flawed. Look, I can absolutely see why this season is beloved by many. It did do so many great things. But there's just some things in it that hold it back from being the best season ever. But before I go into that, I want to talk about the gorgeous elephant in the room. The visuals. Granted, I still think Season 3's visuals are the best the show has ever got, but I will give Season 4 the benefit of the doubt. The visuals this season are absolutely striking. They feel so comfy and warm, the most vibrant they could be at best. The narration also feels so comfy to listen to this season. Funny thing is, during the recording for this season, Angelus had a cold, and it honestly sounds pretty seamless when you compare it to his Season 3 narration. Carlin, on the other hand, sounds like a grandfather telling a bedtime story to his grandkids. That's so neat. This was Carlin's final season as narrator, and he went out swinging. The music by Micah Jr. is more or less the same as it was in the last season, keeping that early 90s feel while also adding in new themes. And the songs this season are instant hits, with fan favorites like Don't Judge a Book by its Cover, Gone Fishing, The Island Song, and Really Useful Engine to name a few gems this season. Granted, with the last one, I definitely prefer the Magic Railroad and Adventure Begins versions of those, but the original is far from bad. It's still a masterful version. I just think its later versions are better. And now for the episodes. There are a lot of fan favorite episodes, but this is kind of where the season is held back for me. Like what Zach Wanzer of Melting Pottery Media said in his Season 4 video, the continuity this season is kind of all over the place. It doesn't affect the quality of the episodes, God no, but it is distracting at times. And much like what ThomasFan261 said in his video on Season 4, it tries to be Season 1 with the first 15 or so episodes, and then it tries to be Season 3 with the last 11 episodes. The first 15 episodes or so are just gem after gem, introducing us to a plethora of new characters, all of which are from a different part of the island. and all have unique and different personalities. And the season starts off with two of the most emotional, saddening, and just impactful stories from this season. You can tell that the crew went to town when filming these two episodes in particular, and that goes for the first batch of episodes in general. And yes, despite the fact that it massively changes Stepney's origins, and the fact that it's the only episode this season not to be based off of any of the Audrey material, I do quite like Rusty to the Rescue for what it did. The music is great, and the atmosphere is quite spooky, though I still prefer last season's Escape for the intensity and epicness. Then after that episode, as well as Train Stops Flay and Bold Out, which were really good by the way, the last 8 episodes of the season just kind of felt like Britt and David just had to rush to meet the 26 episode quota. Not that the episodes that were adapted didn't try, they sure did. It's just that when compared to the first 15 episodes, they just fizzle out towards the end. Especially when it came to the last 3 episodes, which were all based off of Christopher Audrey stories. Fish is definitely the best of the 3 because it's the most interesting out of the 3. Though I think it's mainly carried by its visuals and its eargasm sound effects. But then we get to Special Attraction, and yeah, I can see where people are coming from with this. It's not bad per se, but it just feels like 2 unrelated stories just mashed together. Definitely the weakest of season 4 for sure. And then we have the last ever Audrey written story until season 20. The last Christopher Audrey story to be adapted. The one, the only... Mind That Bike? Like, really? Again, it's not a bad one, but really? That for a season finale? If you ask me, I feel like the season should have ended 2 ways. Either do what the TSMU fan suggested and end off the season with Stop Thief, or just end it with Paypots and Queens, since that feels more so like a finale episode, despite the massive continuity error. But despite that, season 4 is without a doubt one of the best seasons in the show. It's just that it doesn't really live up to something like season 3. But hey, at least this season had its gems. Grandpa, Sleeping Beauty, Home at Last, Special Funnel, Thomas and Stepney, Toad Stands By, and especially Thomas and the Special Letter, which is actually the 100th overall aired episode by the way. And what a way to celebrate it. Now, I still recommend you go and watch this season, but just understand where a lot of us are coming from in terms of its cons. I mean, not every season is perfect after all, because even the best era could have its flaws after all. But hey, at least this season gets to be followed up by an absolute banger of a season. And now we're on to the final season of the Golden Years, Season 5. My second overall favorite season of the entire series. This was a very important season. The season where David Mitson was tasked to show what he could do on a cinematic scale, because Britt had the desire to make a full-on Thomas movie. And we all know what that was, don't we? Season 5 was the season where the team really stepped up their game compared to before. No longer were they adapting Audrey written material. They went all out in making the most craziest scenarios the characters had never been through before. A dam collapsing, explosions, fires, avalanches, landslides, oh my god! I don't even know where to begin with this season. The Britt Allcroft team went all out with this season, and that was because of the potential movie deal writing on it. You know what? I'll just start with the basics. This was the only season of the show until season 17 years later to have a railway consultant. That being the founder of the Railway Children charity, David Maidment. And some of his ideas that were based on real-life railway events were put into episode ideas, such as a ram breaking into a station in Clanhilleth, and the famous Game Montparnasse derailment, I'm pretty sure I just butchered that, which became the basis for the episodes Bar and A Better View for Gordon respectively. And in return for his work on the season, Britt wrote a £10,000 cheque in which Maidment donated to his charity. That is just so sweet. And now I can get into the big guns for season 5. This is probably the closest Thomas got to an action-packed and, somewhat, cinematic experience. Until Brenner got that piece of cinematic action years later with Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Most of the episodes this season really pushed the boundaries that the previous seasons weren't able to do. Episodes like Cranky Bugs, Horrid Laurie, A Better View for Gordon, Foot Upon Percy, Toby and the Flood, Rusty and the Boulder, and Snow are prime examples of putting the engines in the craziest of scenarios. Yeah, quite a bit of it is a little unrealistic, but it's not done distastefully. That's completely all Engines Go's doing, but that's besides the point. The visuals this season are stellar. They feel so cinematic looking and so vibrant. Granted, again, they don't beat season 3's popping visuals, but these are definitely a close second. Mike and Junior's music, though, is at its absolute peak. Their music feels, again, cinematic sounding, with so many themes that could either make you feel all warm and fuzzy, or can put you on the edge of your seat. And the sing-along songs produced this season are, once again, instant hits. Like Donald Stark, It's Great to Be an Engine, Accidents Will Happen, For Sure, what? And Percy's Seaside Trip as examples. Michael Angelos' narration is also at its peak. He sounds so much more livelier than normal this season. He brings so much punch and really tells these stories so much more naturally than in the previous 2 seasons.
Yikes!
Help! Save me! A quick-thinking shunter did just in time. What was that? Exclaimed James.
And then we have the new US narrator this season, Alec Baldwin. Yes, the Alec Baldwin, who would later go on to play Mr. Conductor in Magic Railroad. I gotta be honest, Baldwin's narration in this season was a little better than I thought. His voices could either be comical or just flat out weird. Like James's voice as an example compared to the Scouse accent Angelos gave him. Just go listen to it yourself after the video to see what I mean. The new characters this season are definitely a bit of a mixed range. Derek, Bertram, Thumper, and the Horrid Lauries only appear in one episode and are never seen again, which makes them kinda worthless. Old Slowcoach is a good newbie, but I wish she appeared again after this season. Dowager Hat, Ari, and Bert are really good newbies, albeit the latter two just get reduced to generic bullies from the next season onwards, and Dowager Hat doesn't become a great character until the CGI series. And then there's Cranky. Oh boy! Cranky is... words cannot describe how amazing of a newbie Cranky is in this season. He's still used heavily in the show to this day, and is my favourite non-Audrey new character pre-season 6. And now for the episodes. Oh my god! The episodes this season are immaculate. Such real standouts this season, and all of them play with tone so well. You go from the thrills and scares of Foot Upon Percy, to the heartfelt moments of Happy Ever After, to the scares and chills of Rusty and the Boulder, to the wholesomeness of Make Someone Happy. Yeah, you get the point. Some of my faves this season are Cranky Bugs, Toby and the Flood, A Better View for Gordon, Put Him on Percy, Thomas Percy and Old Slow Coach, Horton Henry, Toby's Discovery, Duncan Gets Spooked, and Rusty and the Boulder. All of these are just brilliant episodes, and there are no other episodes outside of Season 3 and the pre-Brenner seasons that don't come anywhere close to them in terms of quality. So, the Brenner era did produce episodes just as great as this season, especially in Season 20's case. But we'll get to that. So, in conclusion, Season 5 is a brilliant season. It is my second favorite season of the entire series, and is the most cinematic season of the whole show. Call it overrated all you want, but I still think this season had some very high highs. Granted, Season 3 is still my favorite season, but this season is a very close second. Easily Thomas at its prime. And there we have it. We have now covered the first 5 seasons of this iconic franchise. But the ride is not over yet, as we still have 19 more seasons to cover. So prepare yourselves for that.